This will be a new entry in our Using Ubiquity series. The topic of this video will be resources. Although unlike most of the previous videos in the series, this isn't instructional video. It's more of a conceptual video. I think if there's any part of Ubiquity that's hard to get your head around when you first get into the system, it's resources. And then, at least for some people that I've talked to, you can see it one way and then see it another way, and then there are moments of confusion. And as the resources themselves are written from the point of view to support what you're trying to do rather than constrain what you're trying to do, it can be hard to feel confident that you're using them correctly, if there even is such a thing as correctly. So it's for this reason that I feel that resources, out of all the different parts that go up into making Ubiquity what it is, this is the element that can give you the most insight into how the game can be run. I think it's interesting that over the last few years, where my preferences have been taking me is toward games like Ubiquity, which can somehow straddle the old school way of doing things and the new school way of doing things. So that once you get comfortable with it, and if you're of an age to be interested in playing games from both major streams in the hobby, you can draw on the best of your tool set from either side when playing these games, and they can be a lot of fun. But there can be confusion, and there can be war between your own biases depending on where you are on the spectrum of gamers and different gaming ages. But resources are that window into how the game can be played. To be clear, resources are an asset to the character, but unlike things like talents or skills or your attributes, resources can be lost. Now, this can be a bitter pill to swallow because resources still cost experience points. So, let's talk about what resources cover. Resources are things like allies, followers, and that sort of stuff. So if you're playing Leagues of Adventure or All for One, the henchman or the lackey, this is covered by the follower resource. You have someone who is committed to serving you in some way. And they could be a partner. They just have maybe less skill than you do, and you are definitely in charge. And you can think of them from a certain point of view as being an extension of your character. Mechanically, when you buy a follower, you are enhancing a part of your character, either filling in a blank spot or enhancing one of your strengths. That's really what it is. If you're playing a big game hunter and you have a follower who is also a hunter, the two of you can work in tandem using the assistance rules. And you as a hunter will have a bigger effect. Or if you are a soldier and you want to play having no social skills whatsoever, then your follower can provide those skills and allow you to move through polite society without causing too much trouble. So, resources have a mechanical effect. Resources have a strong role-playing effect. Resources straddle both with a very wide stance, unlike something like the accuracy talent, which has a mechanical effect and it has spillover into roleplay, but informs your choices or gets involved in your decision-making process an awful lot less than a resource might. So resources, as I said, are things like allies, followers, status. How does society view you? Are you of noble birth? Are you a high-ranking member of an important corporation? This kind of stuff. your status, your wealth. How able are you to use money as something in the game to change the game environment? So let's use wealth as a good example. Wealth was certainly the the latch that I flipped on the window of resources to let me in to seeing the system the way I do now. What if you've grown up in role play, playing point buy games, such as what you'd find in the World of Darkness for like first and second and revised edition? If you grew up in that era, then as a first edition and slightly second edition player, if you don't take resources, you don't have them, which means there are times when points are tight that you're thinking about, well, do I want to be able to speak this language or drive or have a home? That's an extreme case, but it was certainly possible to play in an environment where if you didn't take resources, your character had no money. None. Which is fine in a game like Vampire where you can just, pickpocket the people that you're feeding on. You're stealing their life from them. Why not take their money? But in a game like Hollow Earth Expedition, this is completely different. Can you survive in the 30s without any money? All right, how do you do that? If you're in the Hollow Earth, no problem. Well, lots of problems, but they're not money problems. But on the surface world, you need money. Do you have to take wealth? Well, the answer is no, and that's helpfully explained in the text, but it's easy to miss when you're learning a lot of other things. Wealth, if present, indicates that you as the player expect to be able to, in some way, bring money to bear on your problems. Whereas if you don't take wealth, then you as the player are not expecting to solve your problems with money. You are instead just playing a character for whom other skills or talents are more important to display. Because in Ubiquity, the way point buy works is that you are putting points on your sheet for the things you want to be known for, rather than all the things you might be able to do. And the Game Master needs to be able to loosen up on when to call for rolls and recognize what a normal person should be able to do in a normal situation, and have a good sense of what is a tense situation and what will best make this scene exciting without slowing it down. So when do we invoke the mechanics and when do we not? And things like wealth are a good example of this. I can play a homeless character if I want to in whatever of these games I'm playing. Or I can play an extremely wealthy character with lots and lots of possessions and servants and everything. And for both of those characters, I'm under no obligation to take wealth. But if I, playing the extremely wealthy character, want to throw money at my problem, then if I don't have the wealth score, I'm not going to be able to do that. Wealth represents my ability to affect the game world with money. Allies, likewise. I can have lots and lots of friends. If I want those friends and allies to be the way in which I solve my problems, I need to take the allies resource. If I just want to have friends and allies and have this sense that I have a likable, lovable character, then I'm in no obligation to do this. What's the difference between a contact, an ally, a follower, a patron? Well, these are carefully explained in the text, and underneath all of that is this is a way for you as the player to interact with the game world through your character and their relationships. So if I have contacts, that means I'm looking to have established, stable relationships in the game where someone is providing me with material, like with gear or information or whatever. That's what they do. Or I have an ally, someone who's willing to go to bat for me. I have a follower, someone who sees me as their leader in some way. They're inspired by me, right? So it's up to you. Do you think that Watson is the follower of Holmes or the ally of Holmes? And it is up to you to decide how these relationships manifest. Status. You want to be able to apply your rank in society in order to get things done. You could be of noble birth. Without status, that noble birth isn't going to allow you to solve your problems. Right? It will certainly inform how you roleplay your character, but it's not going to provide you with situational or negotiational benefits because of your rank. You have chosen not to have that ability. But over time, as you adventure, as you make a name for yourself, maybe your status will rise. And this is another area to get into. Experience points. When we build the character, at first, we're building their core. Who are they really? But then in play, they begin to develop. And play doesn't take place in a vacuum. If the character is doing things which earn fame for them, the game master has the ability to provide a resource to you. If you want to keep it, if you want to keep the effects that come with this temporary fame, you need to put experience points into it. Putting experience points into a temporary resource given to you by the game master, this represents the care and feeding of that resource so that it is something that you can maintain. Sure, you solved the kidnapping and recovered the daughter of the wealthy CEO, and everybody's happy, and you're famous, your picture's in the paper, and then you do nothing. You investigate things, you don't maintain contacts, you don't have that kind of high profile case going on in the background, you have no reason to keep getting your picture in the paper, and so your fame fades away. Or you keep contact with those reporters who were kind enough to put your name and your face in the paper, and they're more interested in following your career, and your fame slowly grows over time. Resources straddle a line between mechanical effect and role-playing your character, who the character is and what they can expect to do, why they can expect to do that. So your rank in your league of adventure, or your rank in your fencing salon, or whatever organization you belong to, your ability to fund your expedition seeking the Hollow Earth, whatever it is that you're doing, all of these resources can increase as a result of what you do in play, and they can decrease as a result of what you do in play. And anything that you're interested in keeping requires the expenditure of experience points. So you're playing a character with high status, and you get involved in a scandal, and people now view you as some kind of pariah. The game master is well within their rights to drop your status. And you can invest experience points with an explanation of how you're going to approach it, of working your way back up the rungs. Right. Now, things like weird science are where I first began to have my trouble with resources. If I want to invent something, and this also applies to like magical things in other games. If I want to create this new thing, it's not enough just to have the skills that says I can do it. I have to invest experience points in realizing this thing. And this is a rule I've encountered in other games in the past, such as early Shadowrun, and it's not a game I liked. I didn't get to play characters who are into designing spells long enough to get over the mental hump of it. Why do I have to put my experience points into this spell? Can't I just roll for that and have designed it? Why do I have to invest experience points in it. Well, I finally understood that rule by getting into Ubiquity. This is something I'm fundamentally saying is how I'm going to interact with the game world. So if I were a wrestler, I wouldn't mind spending my experience points raising my strength or my body, right? Building my dexterity. I wouldn't argue about that at all. And building a device, building some kind of artifact or talisman or what have you, this is my way of saying, okay, this is how I want to express this growth of ability in the game, and recognizing that it is a growth of ability in a game. It's not something I walked into the store and bought. And there are other ways to access this cool stuff in the game, and that comes with higher levels of a resource, such as patron or rank, your membership in some kind of organization. Like in All for One, if you're the member of a fencing salon, if you are, you know, a valued member of high enough rank inside that salon, you can borrow aspects of it. You just need to have some kind of description of how this is possible. This might be something like right out of that old television series Kung Fu, where a situation arises and then we have a flashback to the training days in the temple. Right? And then we see our hero apply some kind of skill or talent, which actually means in Ubiquity, the points on your character sheet do not always represent all the things that your character can do. They represent the things that your character is known for. So if I have a high enough rank in a fencing salon, and I don't have the flurry talent, let's say, which allows me to attack multiple times, but my fencing instructor does have it. In time of need, if my rank is high enough, and I have to maintain that rank through roleplay, if my rank is high enough, I can have access to that talent in need through a flashback or memories or what have you. If I don't have a developed web of contacts, but my patron does, then perhaps I'm gifted with a letter of introduction, which for this particular mission or this voyage overseas on a great expedition, I have the benefit of my patron's contacts or my patron's allies or whatever. This is a very fascinating type of resource. Something that can be lost, something for which you must pay, and something with which you can be gifted. And if you like it, again, invest points in keeping it. So, what this serves to highlight for me is that when you look at a Ubiquity character, you might think, wow, my scores are quite low. I've definitely heard that a lot from people I've introduced to the game. Like, I only have 1s and 2s in my skills. And then you guide them to look at the rating, right? Your skill plus the associated attribute is your rating. The skill level is important, but it's the combination of who you are with what you know that allows you to interact with the game world. And your rating plus gear plus situational modifiers, this is your pool to act in that particular moment. So, right, you might have 1 die in a skill added on to a 2-die attribute. That's 3 dice, which means looking at the averages, you're going to get at least 1 success. You're at least going to succeed anytime you tried this thing. If it's a difficult situation where you might need 2 successes, you've got a 50-50 chance of pulling that off. If you need 3 successes, it's within the realm of possibility. If it's harder than that, no, you're not skilled enough. Right? Someone else would have to be. But with the right tools, with the right assistance, with the right amount of time taken for you to undertake this task, it becomes possible. So, you, as a Ubiquity player, when you're looking at your character, you have to remember at all times that they are more than the sum of these parts. That Ubiquity as a system is a framework designed to support the action that's happening. Now, for all of that freedom, when you do come up against the framework, it really should be respected. What is that framework showing you about this particular trait? In terms of resources, this is showing you a volatile aspect of your character. This is not the intrinsic quality of the character. This is something that is created when they interact with the world that they live in. Right? They have wealth, or they have status. They have memberships in important groups. They have someone who's a mentor guiding their path. Whatever it is, it requires them to interact, and to maintain it, to build it, to lose it, all is dependent on how you play your character, which I think is really cool. And once we grasp this, we can look at things like the archetype, which might seem like a throwaway step when you're first creating a character. But the Ubiquity character's archetype is the cleanest, the simplest way for you to inform the group who you're playing. So in our All for One game that's going on right now, I thought long and hard about who I wanted to play, and finally I chose the archetype Noble, which means when I play my character, I have to keep that in mind at all times. My character was raised to be noble. They currently do not have the status, the wealth, any of the resources that go along with being a noble. All they have is their commission in the Musketeers. That's the last thing they have left. But in all of my interactions, I must remember that archetype. Stripped of everything. Who is this character? This character is a person of noble birth. How would a nobleman act in this situation? It's very, very, very powerful, not at all throwaway element of your character. Likewise, resources are something to be cherished, developed, maintained. Your role play needs to in some way revolve around them, and they will grow and evolve over time as your character moves through their adventures, their missions, their explorations, or whatever it is that you get up to with Ubiquity. So, I hope this video has helped in some way. In 2011, if I'm remembering correctly, some early in 2011 is when I came to the end of this, argument with myself, or this exploration of the system. And I wrote a blog post called Let Those with Eyes See. I'll put the link in the description box below. And if this video hasn't quite solidified my point of view, hopefully that will. If you're having trouble with resources, or if you want to talk more about them, put a comment below or get in touch with me in some other way. I'm always happy to talk about this game and others. Thanks for watching.